So, hello from my side. I'm the last barrier between you and lunchtime, so I try to be short. Although I can speak about hours, about sharing and convincing what I think is an advantage to put on the gender lenses. Thank you for inviting me. We know as a school child you're brought up with all this historical dialectic relationship between Hungary and Austria. But I'm very glad to say that now we have established real strong connectivity between the city of Budapest and Vienna. I have learned in the coffee break that next week there will be an exchange in Vienna about green infrastructures, parks and sponge construction. And I think this is an extremely important topic to how our trees can survive, our new plant trees, and how we can survive in our heating planet. Why is this an issue, and why I think I have been invited from the organizers? There is a professional self-understanding of architects and planners, and I am part of this profession. We know what is good for everybody. And this is really our professional explanation and understanding. And action in planning needs all the time constant decision-making, very often with conflicting goals. I think this is a bit our daily bread. And we also have to make constant calibrations. And I think unconsciously we take our specific everyday life context and experiences. One example for calibration, I was in a very nice hotel. I had the chance to stay this night, but in the wardrobe, I really had to stand on my tiptoes just to reach the hook there. And so I think this is a kind of how important it is, how you calibrate. And there was this criticism after the second move of the women's movement, also in these planning issues, that we have a male, and today we would also say white middle-class bias. And there is also, this was already mentioned many times, there's this tendency to see that the city is only a technical system and not a social one. From the Beggar's Opera, there is this famous song, "Those in the shadows are not seen." And these international rankings, I would really, Vienna is always very proud to be in these Mercer rankings, and their managers asked. And I think it would be very interesting to have, for example, an international ranking about homeless people and how they judge their city. And I hope that Vienna would be also there at a decent level. But we don't know, we never asked them. Gender, it's not about only sex, it's a differentiation beyond biological categories. We in Vienna say we use the gender plus concept, so it's really about social roles, and here really about very important about the share of care work, for example. It's not only about paid work, but care work. It's about different ages and life phases. It's about cultural and social backgrounds, and also with specific needs, people with specific needs. And there are these gender-based differences. It's care work. I think this is really important for your everyday patterns, but there are also different leisure interests between different groups. There are different mobility patterns. There's a difference in the probability of sexual harassment and rape. And there is a different level of suffering from heat, for example. And we know there's a strong connectivity between urban structures, mobility conditions, and the quality of everyday life. And so this understanding of gender planning is really to stand in different shoes. So it's a it's a strategy of quality assessment for planning processes in regard to the equal opportunities of different groups. And if you can say you really want to raise the social intelligence of the planning and technical system. And it's a question of fairness. So we have created this branding of fair shared city for this strategy in Vienna. And it's really between these competing interests that you really try to reach a better balance in the allocation of financial means, but also prioritization of measurements. But you also can argue it on a neoliberal level. It's a question about efficiency, because if you know more and better about the specific needs of your customers, then you can better meet their interests. Gender is a cross-sectional issue, so also in our smart city, I think this fits all very good together. We have also the social sustainability as an important spectrum, not only what is technological possible, but what is really what we all want and think is important. And also in our strategy about economy and innovation, we have established here these equality aspects. We have quite a long tradition of gender planning in Vienna, and I just want to in a very rapid show you some points of our work. I will speak about hardware, software, and work aids. Housing, to keep this short, because I know there is a difference in the situation between Budapest and Vienna. We are happy that we are a federal state, so we have financial means, we have a long tradition on social housing. This was a competition. I'm now invited for the 25-year celebration where tenants moved in. So this was a competition only female architects. It was about empowerment of female architects and urban design. This is social housing and subsidized housing. And we as a jury, we decided on this because I think this is really important, this great variety of open spaces for everyday life. This is really good if you have different facilities. There are more than 1,000 people, around 1,000 people living there. But it's also fair share within flats, for example. So the apartments have, this is in one house, in one building, have the same size, so you can easily adapt to the needs, and you can change the position of rooms, and the furniture will always fit. And there is the kitchen really is in a very central position. But also secondary rooms as primary issues. Architects very often forget about that in your daily use of your buildings. It really makes a difference. For example, in the front building, there are the pram stalls on every floor, and everyone who has to take care of a screaming child is very happy if the distance is a short one. Gender-sensitive mobility, we made a pilot district because we know from our data, and it was already mentioned how important data analysis is, that walking and using public transport is dominated by women, and biking and car driving is dominated by men. I think this is the same all over the world. And so we focused on the improvement for pedestrians. In a quite central, the 6th district of Vienna, and it was quite a lot. All the departments engaged in public space have been involved, and it was quite a lot of small measurements, but in the end improved the quality. It was about broadening the sidewalks. We have very tense streets there, so you really have to fight for centimeters. About innovative solutions for barrier freeness, because you need the steps for the entrance, but then the sidewalk was separated. About safe crossings, there was a long debate about the need and if this will function. And the political board, she was a very energetic woman, and she said, if you have technical doubts, then we just try it during the summer weeks, and then we will fix it, and it worked there since 15 years now. Traffic lights, so we reduced, for example, it's again the question of calibration. Very often the programming of the traffic light is orientated on a healthy grown-up, the speed of a healthy grown-up, and so we reduce this calculation for senior residences, for example. Safety issues, this is a women's commission, they made night walks there, the political women's commission, to identify spaces of anxiety. They reserved a specific budget really to improve the lighting. Also for the street monitoring, they were really only focused, the technical department, on the lanes, and then they were told to shift their attendance to the sidewalks because small holes, they are much larger obstacle for pedestrians than for cars. And also the sidewalks cafe, if you invest all your public money to broaden the sidewalks, and then the restaurants take again all the space. So this was also a bargaining between pedestrian interests and restaurants. And all in the end, the outcome was really that there was really an improvement with all these measurements. A new topic is shared mobility, these mobility points in our urban development areas. And here is an example of Biotope City. And I think it's again, I took a photograph there. It's not only about cars and bikes, but also about other facilities, buggies for children, for example, or trolleys for shoppers. So I think it's again this holistic lens that I hope will also help that this becomes an interesting, also economic functioning model there. Gender-sensitive park design, this we are really proud that this is our gender most, I think it's the only city Vienna has. We have realized by a social scientific survey that really all the park design is concentrated on boys' interests. So for kids, it's always the male kids, and we know that girls, they just disappear because they're disappointed about the situation in the parks, not for little children, because there are the parents, they are looking for equal share and equal use, but later then it's really the boys are dominated. We realized 6 pilot projects, 4 of them with active involvement of girls. And we evaluated these projects, and then we made recommendations. And now we really can say every new or redesigned park in Vienna and playground, public playground, follows these recommendations. And I think this is really I can tell you this is really the consequent, this rollout of gender measurements, but I think this is quite easy because parks are in the position, are owned by the city and are managed by the city. So there was quite a resistance in the beginning in the gardening department, but now they're really convinced about the quality. Gender-sensitive public spaces, I think public space really creates the social capital of a city, so I think this design is extremely important. This is an example, one of our biggest public places, and about the redesign of a metro, extension of a metro line. There was the chance to redesign because the tram tracks could be taken out. And there were these different elements. This was a participation process, and it's about bringing water there, bringing new trees there. There are playing facilities beside the way. And what we really also find by this participation process, there was a very active school, and the girls organized, because it was a very male-dominated place by youth, so they organized girls' events there twice a year. And they said it would be very nice to have a public stage. And so there is, and it's written in German, it's the first girls' stage in public space in Vienna. Of course, it can be used by other groups, but it's a sign that it's also their place and an invitation to them. Placemaking, I think I just want to hurry through this neighborhood gardening, or to just cheap measurements to close the streets and organize playing activities there twice a month in different districts in Vienna. And we also give subsidies for these micro places in the park lane. Gender-sensitive urban design, I think this is the highest level where all these aspects come together. I know there was an exchange about Lake City Aspen, one of our biggest, in Europe, in Central, one of the biggest urban development areas. And again, for Kehrwerk, I think, for example, it's interesting that there was a management society, so there were contracts about ground floors, and this is organized like a shopping mall, but it's a shopping street, and I think this is a very, so that when you move in, that you already find all the necessary shops there. So I think this, but again, this is a former airport area, and so we have a development agency, and so in the contract they could force the developer to rent their ground floor following this pattern. But I think this is an interesting model. Just to have a look, we try to reduce really, there is a very low car use rate there, and you have a lot of active children moving around, and I think this is one of the indicators at what age children are can move around the central lake. But also the symbolic level, all the names, we have these bias with the persons honored, and in our urban development areas, all the personalized street names are now after famous women's artists, scientists, philosophers. This I want to skip just to show that all our new development areas really, we also try to realize the city of short distances we've already mentioned. I don't like the expression 15 minutes or 20 minutes because again, which speed? Again, this question of calibration. Impact of gender planning, so there was really a race in mobility issues, in safety issues, and urban design, but I want to just to rush through, time is running. Software now, gender-sensitive participation. This happens when you do the normal invitation, you just write a letter to every household, invite them in the early evening to a public office. Then you can take a picture like that, or you are on a weekend on the site, inviting people, staying there. And we also have learned if you have small tables, then also the silent groups, the timid groups start to talk because they don't want to speak in the audience. So you get much more feedback and dialogue if you have these formats. And Reumannplatz, I already mentioned, sometimes it's really also about picturing. So we had this again, multilingual feminist landscape planners on the place for a weekend, asking people what they want to do on the place, and then for the different atmosphere to give feedback points, and we decided to differentiate by color between the sexes and by size between age, so the kids and children. And for example, I realized that boys were giving much more points than girls, and so I jumped to every girl passing by and say, please vote also what you want to have. And so this is a very simple method. So sometimes it's also the analog methods are quite helpful. Fairness check, this is also what I just want to mention. So this is a very simple, because participation also needs financial means. You can't do it for every project, it also is. But for example, we have done this for our mobility and public space strategical concept. It ends with a long list of measurements. Normally, I always call this planning literature also. But then we discussed this and we said, what are the most important target groups for the topics? And then we invited gender experts, diversity experts, and inclusion experts. And then we discussed if specific measurements, the most important ones, do they have an important positive impact on that group or not? And in the end, we had to redefine or sharpen a third of the measurements, because we realized, for example, we forgot it was all about digitalization at that time, and then 10% of people don't own a smartphone. Then we added, it also must be available analog information. And so this is a very simple tool just to structure your discussion. So this I skip. So we have developed all our different methods, and we have put this together in a manual. Is available also in the internet. So all our hand-knitted methods we have developed over the years. We have learned from other cities we want to share so that everybody can base on the work of the others. Also, I want to mention a World Bank manual. I was there involved as a peer reviewer, because I think we can also learn a lot from global societies, because they are really what I call arte povera. They are used to develop with less material input high quality, and it's really impressive, and the good practices there. Also, this manual for Tbilisi. So these are the effects, what it needs for an inclusive and better city for women. I hope I could give you some ideas. And I just want to end that social, sustainable, gender-sensitive and post-fossil urban restructuring is a chance and an urgent need. And I think we all know what we have to do, but policy must survive it, and we as technical experts, we are also here to support politicians to make this transformation, and we have to convince people that we have much more to gain than to lose, and about this quality. And I think this gender lens really can help to identify the groups that will support you on the way. And thank you for the attention.